get back to the question of going from that environment into a structured school environment, they soar. That, you know, hundreds of graduates have said the same thing. They had no trouble adapting at all. But the little girl Katie was just referring to, Diane's oldest, she, at I think about a year ago, at age 10 and a half, 11, just never taken a test, never, you know, just lived this totally living and learning life. But she loves soccer. So she saw the manager of a huge soccer county. It's a county-wide program, huge, enormous organization. So she sees the boss one day and she said, "So what do you have to do to be a soccer referee?" And he said, "What do you mean? Who wants to be one?" "I do." He said, "Well, you know, I don't know if we can have children." She said, "Oh, you can. There's nothing in the rule book about ages." He said, "Well, you have to pass the test." She's the only person in the history of the soccer league that has gotten 100% on that test. She is a referee in the Pinellas County Soccer League, making $25 an hour at age 11 or 12. That's what Sudbury education does for children. All kids.
Yes. You told a lot of stories about kids who, you know, were almost born into the Sudbury school. And my question is, you know, we don't live in a very progressive, let alone world, county.
Yes.
And how do kids come into this school from wherever they're coming from? Because you're going to have kids from all ages.
Yes.
That, you know, were not in this environment before. So how do they become these wonderful, loving, non-judgmental kids?
Somehow all of a sudden word is starting to get out to teens that we're happening next September. There is a process of unschooling. And the reason is, it has to do with what I was talking about before, that external reference versus the internal reference point. Kids who've been even 2 years in traditional school, you know, there's a lot of educational research about what happens to kids from K to 3, and it's downhill. And it's usually at this end, the people-pleasing, the you know, perfectionistic child to the angry, bored kids over at this end. But they have to undo what's happened in traditional schooling, and we call that in Sudbury lingo the unschooling process. And it's a process of getting very bored, because they come into a Sudbury school and say, "Okay, what do I do?" "Well, whatever you would like. What would you like to do?" You know, and staff puts it back on, and they keep looking for someone to tell them, to fix it, to make them less bored, until they finally get in here and go, "What do I want to do?" That's a really neat process, but it takes a while.
When we were a young child, I can refer to mine because he's 5, but he's just learning math and so when he goes to the Jersey Shore preschool, when he wants to, let's say, well, you don't have a passion for math, when he wants to pursue it and he wants to learn it, what resources will he have to pursue
Once
it and
a
to
child
learn?
really wants it on their own, they may ask for any class they want. We'll run classes if the children want them. But it's not if the parents want them, it's not if their friends tell them you should be taking math class, it's not all the shoulds. It's when they run, like a lot of kids want to understand math because they, you know, the heart of a lot of Sudbury schools is the kitchen. They love cooking and baking, and they want to have recipes, and they want to triple recipes, and they want to understand math to do that, or they just learn it naturally in the kitchen. They can ask for a class and anything they want. They can ask for a math class, they can ask for a physics class.
Even the little ones, if they don't really know how to say it, they really you know, they can't like put it into words, I really need a class, but they have it inside them. I mean, it could be reading, it could be anything.
They may choose how and what they want. If he came to me and said, Jerry, will you sit with me and show me?
So we would need to
Absolutely.
encourage them, you want to learn something, you know, go to Jerry, you know. or
No,
go to
we would ask parents not to encourage them.
Okay.
Because then
Don't
that's
ask
coming,
me.
right. But if he's asking you, say, I don't know, will you see if you can find out at school? If he's asking you something you don't want to teach him, you're free to say that. You just wouldn't want to encourage him to come to school and ask.
But you
Because
want him to
when
learn
they
for himself.
want to know enough, they ask and they learn it like that.
And it's one of the things that the mixed ages really influences the kids. I know when we spent a day at Spring Valley last year, the kids were sitting around having, the little ones were all sitting around doing class on learning to tell time. Because they started not liking, wait a minute, all these things are scheduled, and all the older kids are talking about, I'm going to do this at 2 o'clock. And they didn't want to not know what 2 o'clock was anymore. It got to the point that they were, and they sat down, and it was like, boom, learn telling time in about like an hour. Things that we do classes on for, you know, like a year here. It's unbelievable. So I find that like one of the things that's so amazing is watching the younger kids look up to the older kids and like, you know, they may have somebody they kind of look up to studying something. He's like, well, I'm going to learn that. And so sometimes they're learning things because they're modeling the older kids. Sometimes they're teaching it to a little one. And other times they start by doing things like that, really do get in touch with, well, he picks that because he loves to study that. Well, what do I love to do? You know, so
So how do you start school?
how?
I mean, you would naturally, the way I'm understanding it, you need students across the whole spectrum to actually embrace the whole Sudbury way of learning.
Yeah.
They learn, like my 5-year-old needs to learn from your 8-year-old, and your 16-year-old, and you know, so is there some mix that you're planning on? That's what I'm asking.
Well, originally I was where you were. The Founders Committee has voted not to, we were going to do 3 age groups, and because we're limiting the opening group to 30, if you haven't heard that. We were going to do it by 3 age groups. The Founders Committee voted against that, and they voted to open it to the first 30 that come, no matter what the age. The thought being that by year 2, it will be the whole gamut. One of the things that we did say, even though the school will go through high school graduation,
It's based on what? Well, why would it be the whole gamut the next year? Based on
More
folks
exposure.
attracted?
more exposure, more, yes, yes. And, you know, some people like right away get this and know it's right, and they resonate because they're in a healthier place maybe, or because they've been exposed more themselves, and they just know it, and they don't have the fear that, you know, is part of the system we're trying to